Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my summer horror movie series. Today, we're going to take a look at a sort of a road thriller horror kind of movie. Some people might not even consider it a horror movie, but I am for the purposes of this series, and that is the movie Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino, part of the Grindhouse double feature. Although this is released on its own, but it was originally part of the Planet Terror, the Grindhouse double feature. But yeah, Death Proof from 2007 from by Quentin Tarantino. I have the two disc special edition here, so let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the setup and the premise and the cast, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which will be spoiler free as much as possible. So, Death Proof is a 2007 American action thriller film, basically a horror exploitation film, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. It stars Kurt Russell as a stuntman who murders young women with modified cars and purports them to be death proof. So basically the film opens with three friends, Arlene, Shayna, and radio DJ Jungle Julia Luce, drive down Congress Avenue in Austin, Texas, on their way to celebrate Julia's birthday. In a bar, Julia reveals that she made a radio announcement offering a free lap dance from Arlene in return for addressing her as Butterfly, buying her a drink, and reciting a segment of a poem stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Aging Hollywood stunt double Mike McKay trails the women to a bar and claims the lap dance. He notes that Julia is on billboards across town and she is cold towards him. He returns to sit he returns to sit with the group and recites the line to Arlene. She is suspicious, having seen Mike's car earlier in the day watching her outside a restaurant, but he convinces her to give him a lap dance. The women prepare to depart with Lena, another friend, to Shayna's family lake house. Pam, Julia's old classmate, is in need of a ride home and accepts Mike's offer. Mike takes Pam to his Hollywood stunt car. Mike takes Pam in his Hollywood stunt car, which is rigged with a roll cage, and tells her the car is death proof. Once Pam is in the passenger seat, he reveals that only death proof for the driver. He speeds and slams on the brakes, smashing Pam's skull on the dashboard, killing her. So that's kind of the roundabout setup and premise of the movie. Gets us into it. As far as the cast, we have Kurt Russell, of course, is Mike Stuntman, Mike McKay, Stuntman Mike or Mike McKay, Zoe Bell as herself, a New Zealand stunt woman. Rosario Dawson is um, Abernathy Abby Ross. Vanessa Furlito is Arlene Butterfly. Sydney Tamaya Portier as Jungle Julia Luce. Tracy Thomas is Kimberly Kim Mathis. Rose McGowan is Pam. Jordan Ladd is Shayna, or Shayna Banna. Shayna Banana? Banana. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Leanna Lee Montgomery. So I don't know why they're listed as like their full name with their nickname in between there. But anyway, I probably butchered some of those names, but that's the setup and the premise and the cast for 2007's Death Proof. As I said, this was presented as a Grindhouse double feature with Planet Terror, which I do not have that movie and I have not seen that movie. I heard it's pretty over the top, gory and fun. But this I have as a single release here as this double pack. But so my thoughts on Death Proof is I think I enjoy it for the most part. It's kind of a mixed bag for me. Let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the things that I like about the movie. It's definitely not a perfect movie, and I don't think it's one of Quentin Tarantino's best movies. The pros, you got to start with the practical old school car chase scenes and road horror parts of the movie. Very fun and refreshing to not have any CGI involved. Nowadays, when you get car chases, it's all digital, it's all computer generated. Quentin Tarantino went old school with it, and I love a good old school car chase, like a 1970s or even 80s car chase. So we don't really get those anymore. So that was really the best part of the movie for me is that aspect of those car chase scenes. We kind of get one midway through the movie or towards the movie's kind of broken in half. Like I mean, you kind of have the first half of the movie, and then there's a big thing that happens, and then you have the second half of the movie. And both halves have kind of a bit of a car chase, although the second half has the biggest car chase of the movie. But that's definitely a pro that I really enjoyed. Then you got to talk about Kurt Russell, who's really one of my favorite actors. I just love Kurt Russell, going back to The Thing, and he's been in all kinds of great movies, inside of horror and outside of horror. Obviously, he was Escape from New York, and the list just goes on and on. Backdraft and Miracle, and I just love him. He's a great actor. He plays stuntman Mike. He's really good here. He's both creepy, he's funny, and overall entertaining, and he delivers a great performance. I think, all the way from being like an overconfident asshole to basically crying and whining for his life at one point in this movie. But yeah, he really pulls it off and delivers a great performance. I think the other performances are really pretty solid as well, especially by Zoe Bell, Rose McGowan, and Vanessa Ferlito. Those are really the three that stands out. But really, there's not a bad performance in this movie, in my opinion. Also, the blood and the gore are definitely present in this movie. I mean, it's a Tarantino movie. What do you expect? Um, but yeah, there's quite a bit of it. It's not overly gory or bloody, but still, it's still very effective for what's here, especially as it relates to the deaths. Of course, that's where you get most of it. So that's definitely going to be a pro for a lot of people. Like I said, my favorite part of the movie is definitely, I think, isn't more in the first half, towards the end of the first half, when they all leave the bar and the road horror and slasher elements of the movie are on full display. I think it's the creepiest part of the movie, and I love the one particular scene I love is there's a car crash that happens, and they Tarantino replays it over and over again, so you can see what happens to each individual involved in the car crash and get different perspectives for those individuals. I just love that. I'm not sure I've seen anything like that. So that was one of my favorite things in the movie. But yeah, and in a way, it is kind of a slasher movie, you know. Besides being a horror exploitation film and an action thriller, road horror, whatever you want to call it. It fits into lots of different subgenres, but you could also call it a slasher film, especially the first half. Well, really, the whole movie is a slasher film. It's just that instead of using a knife or something, a car is used. Um, so yeah, and I think it's a pretty well directed by movie by Tarantino, who executes his vision pretty well. It's definitely not as heavy a movie as some of his other ones like Django Unchained or Inglorious Bastards. It's a lot easier to watch than those. He himself admitted this probably is one of his weaker films, but I still think it's pretty well directed overall. And overall, really, all you can say about it's a fun and entertaining movie that, as I said, it isn't as heavy as some of Tarantino's other movies. It's just more fun, kind of over the top, gore and great action. So, and some horror certainly. So yeah, those are the pros that I have for Death Proof. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie. Getting into some of my cons, and the biggest one, this movie does have some lulls in it, and mostly it's a lot of scenes with characters talking. Now, normally with Tarantino, that's entertaining in itself. You look at a movie like Pulp Fiction or something. Um, but in this movie, it's just that the dialogue. Tarantino is one of the best at writing dialogue in Hollywood, writing like characters, interactions, and things. But in this movie, I didn't feel like it's as strong or the dialogue was as interesting. Also, the characters, while they're okay, I don't think they're as interesting as some other movies either. Um, and I think overall, it just ends up dragging the pace of the overall movie down. I mean, this is a movie I also don't think you needed as much dialogue and um, character interactions as they had in this movie. I mean, it's good to have some, and I understand you're wanting to develop the characters, although I would argue why. A lot of the characters are basically cannon fodder in this movie. If when you watch it, you know what I'm talking about. So there's really not a reason to spend like half the film developing these characters and having them talk to each other for over extended periods of time. So like I said, the movie definitely has lulls in it with a lot of talking and interaction. Just not as interesting a dialogue or as strong, and it drags the pace of the movie down overall. There's also inconsistencies in the grindhouse look and shooting of the movie. Basically, the first half of the movie shot as a 70s grindhouse movie, and then they basically just drop it halfway through the movie. Now, that's not a huge con for me, but it is something that I noticed, and it just kind of makes you wonder. It does stand out. So in a way, that is a con because I don't think they want that to stand out. There's a black and white sequence at the beginning of the second half of the movie that's interesting. That was sort of an interesting old school shooting, but as far as that 70s grindhouse, where you can see like part of the film with cuts and burns on it, kind of, you know what I mean. It doesn't have any of that in the second half. It's all polished and new, basically. So, just something I noticed. It's very inconsistent. Not as grindhousey in the second half. One of my big complaints is I definitely wanted more of the road horror and highway chase scenes and less of the character interactions and dialogue. As I said, this isn't a movie that needed a lot of dialogue, in my opinion, since some of the characters are simply exploitation fodder. But yeah, I would have even preferred to break the movie up into three parts and even show, instead of two halves, show like an earlier sequence, even with a car crash or some deaths, and then the one that we get in the first half, and then go to what the movie ends up being in the last half, the third act. So I definitely would have wanted some more car chase scenes and some more. I think you also could have developed some more characters there. I know there's already a lot of characters in this movie, but I don't know. I think you could have broken it up a little bit better. It would have helped with pacing too. I definitely wanted more of that because those are the best parts of the movie. And then finally, the ending of the movie, which most people enjoy, and I enjoy it too. I did feel like it was a bit over the top for me, where Tarantino really let it go with all that. Got to tap that ass and MFers, motherfuckers, said about 34 times over again. And the female empowerment celebration, well, that's all fine and good, and certainly it was deserved for Stuntman Mike. He got his comeuppance, to say the least. I just felt like it was a little heavy-handed, and the viewer got hit across the face pretty hard with it. It's a smaller con, but it's definitely something that you notice, and I get it. I know why it's there, and it's just I just thought it could have been handled a little less heavy-handed, in my opinion. But overall, it is an enjoyable movie. It's an enjoyable watch for the most part. Like I said, I just wish there was more of this and less of these talking. um, but it's an enjoyable movie. It's not Tarantino's best. I'm not somebody I really enjoy Tarantino. He's one of my favorite directors, but I also admit that not every movie he's made is a masterpiece. There's some people that are just every single movie's great to them. That's definitely not the case with me. He definitely has his movies, his all-time classics, but I don't think this is quite it. But it is an entertaining romp and an enjoyable one. And I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I think Death Proof is definitely worth a watch. It's entertaining from the practical car chase scenes to the characters, especially the performances, especially by Kurt Russell, the direction, the blood, and the gore. There's enough fun here to be had. So, 7 out of 10 for Death Proof from 2007, the Quentin Tarantino film. Comment down below, guys, if you've seen Death Proof, what you think of it. Do you agree with my review? Do you like it more or less? Be sure to like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos for this series. And be sure to hit the subscribe button down below as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content on my channel for coming up for through the rest of the year and into next year. Actually, I've got it all planned out for you guys. So hope you enjoyed this video review. Hope you're having a great day. Stay scared. Bye.